Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome back to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. This is episode 84. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am the host. Welcome to my show, everybody. Especially if this is your first time listening in. Thank you so much for downloading, streaming, listening, however you're listening to this show. Thank you so much. I got a great show for you guys today. I sat down with Gina Barberi. She's one of the hosts on Radio From Hell on X96, 96.3. But before I get into that, I want to share a few things with you really quickly. First of all, you can find the website for the podcast at iamsaltlake.com. You can download all the previous episodes right there. You can stream them. I got links for iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mediocre Radio Network, all the links to get in touch with me, more information about the podcast. Everything is right there online. From time to time, I get an email or I get a comment or I get a tweet from a listener telling me how much they appreciate this podcast, and I really enjoy hearing from you guys. So if you want to drop me an email, if you want to call up the voicemail, I love to hear from you guys. This is a comment I got from listener Michael Castro. He left it on a reply on a Facebook comment, and I just thought I would read this really quickly because it really meant a lot to hear this from him. He writes, I enjoy this podcast immensely since I got here this time around. And as a local artist now myself, from being from out of town, it helps to inform the moves I make. I don't think I would be one of the admins of Salt Lake Underground Artist Group on Facebook without the info you provide. Also, I am the Salt Lake City representative for MakePeaceDay.org and the Make Peace Global Art Project. Now I am the featured artist of the month of July with the Hive Gallery at Stoneground. Your podcast gave me insights into the vital moves to make that happen. I always show appreciation for those that help me, even if they don't know they are doing that. So thank you so much, Michael Castro, for that comment. Love to hear the impact that this podcast might be making on the lives of you guys and on your individual lives and the steps that you're making to help make Salt Lake City better, like I say. So keep those emails coming, those voicemails. You can find all of that at iamsaltlake.com. Like I mentioned, in this episode, I sat down with Gina Barberi. She's one of the hosts of Radio From Hell on X96. You can find the website at x96.com. Find it on your radio, 96.3. In episode 74, I sat down with Carrie Jackson, so I thought it would be only right to bring Gina on and have her share her story about how she teamed up with Radio From Hell, how she got into radio, just a little bit more about her life, so you guys can find out a little bit more about her. You can catch them in the mornings, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. You can also download the episodes podcast form on iTunes. However you need to listen to it, I cannot urge you to check out Radio From Hell enough. So anyways, I'm going to quit talking. Let's jump into that conversation that I had now with Gina Barberi from X96 Radio From Hell. Most people probably already know who you are, but if they are living under a rock, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself, who you are, who is Gina Barberi? Where did you grow up here in Utah, or what's your story?
Yeah, mostly I was born in California.
What part of California?
San Jose.
Okay. Like most typical Utahns,
yeah.
Right? Come from California and
one of those damn Californicators moving in here. But I was 3, so I didn't have much say in it. But my dad was doing radio in California and got a job here in Utah, and so moved the family out here when I was 3. And it was supposed to be a 2-year job, and here I am.
Now, where was your dad doing radio at? Where was he?
In San Jose.
Okay.
He was at a radio station called KLIV. His radio name was Tom Berry because Barberi was too ethnic sounding, okay. I guess. So he was Tom Berry in San Jose and got an opportunity to come out here to Utah and do radio at Call Radio, which is not around anymore, which is sad. But he thought this was a stepping stone to a bigger job in San Francisco that he wanted. And you actually should think about having him on your show.
I'll have to look him up. Yeah.
He'd be an interesting. He is Salt Lake.
Is he still doing radio?
He does a little weekend show.
On what station does he do radio?
On you would say that. the sports station? Why can't I think of Larry Miller's sports station?
Like one of the AM
The Zone.
stations.
It's The Zone.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's mostly retired, but he does that. But yeah, he came here and was supposed to be a stepping stone for him to move to San Francisco and do a show.
So Utah was going to be a temporary stop, ended up being a permanent stop.
He fell in love with it, didn't think he would. And so our family stayed here. And
in Salt Lake, or where did you grow up at?
I mean, I grew up in Ogden, actually.
Oh, wow.
I went to St. Joseph's High School in Ogden. And
now you were raised Catholic, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that tough growing up in such a Mormon dominated state at a young age? I mean, back then especially.
You know, I think that's part of the reason I went to Catholic school is to kind of get away from the why aren't you going to primary conversations that happen in public school. But of course had a lot of LDS friends in the neighborhood. And my mom was super laid back about it all. And, you know, like we went to Mormon summer camp because my friends in the neighborhood went, and she said, yeah, you can go to summer camp. I don't care. I didn't understand what bearing my testimony was or any of that, but camp was fun. So
you were asked to bear your testimony.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's just that part of camp comes up. And,
yeah.
But no, it wasn't hard at all.
Yeah. So jumping forward a little bit, when did you first get interested in radio? Was it because of your dad then, or at what age did you decide, I want to do something with radio? I
mean, I always thought it was cool that that's what my dad did, but I had always wanted to get involved in TV. And
did you do anything with TV then?
Yeah. No? So in college, I interned at Channel 2 and I worked at the Tribune. I knew I wanted to do something in the media, but I wasn't quite sure what it was. And just for kicks up at the U, I was doing KU radio just for fun.
So you went to school at the U. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Never thought it would be a career. I just thought this is fun. I thought for sure I'd go into TV, but then when I interned at Channel 2 and I was doing KU at the same time, I realized I was enjoying the radio part much more than I was the TV part. So I kind of surprised myself wanting to go in that direction.
And radio was a lot different back then, I'm sure, than it is today.
Yeah. It's that student radio station in particular. I mean, it was just basically a PA system that went to the Union Building. It wasn't even really broadcast, so it barely even counted. But how I got my first job in radio, it's kind of funny because Carrie and Bill used to do the morning show at KJQ.
I remember those days back in the day, yeah.
And they were having a contest to have Faith No More come play a house party at your house. So my friend Kristen and I loved Faith No More and thought, we're going to go down there and we're going to win this contest. And it was just a lame, like we were talking.
And this was down in Provo.
No, this was in Ogden.
When KJQ was in Ogden, okay.
We were a talking invitation to Faith No More, like a big poster board with a circle cut out for your face. It was stupid. And we didn't win the contest, but got talking to Carrie and Bill off the air. And they offered me an internship.
Really?
Just based on...
At KJQ.
Mm-hmm. And so I worked overnights for free.
Like most interns do.
Yes. But by myself at the station, this would never happen to me.
And you were playing music, though, and everything, which you enjoyed.
No, it was great. And, but we don't even have a live overnight person anymore.
It's all just automated now. It's kind of sad, huh?
Which I hate. It's really sad. It's dying, I'm afraid.
Radio itself, you think, a little bit? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think radio's ever going to go anywhere.
Yeah, we need it in our cars, right? When we're driving around.
But no, even that. I mean, there will come a time in the not too distant future where, every car will be hooked up to the internet and you'll just get whatever internet radio station or whatever podcast or won't even be a broadcast. I mean, I don't think that will ever totally go away, but companies are chipping away at it and there's no place, wherever the new talent is coming from, it's coming from podcasts. It's coming from, there's no training ground for young radio people anymore.
So did you go to school for broadcasting at all? Or
I did.
Was that your degree then? Or what was actually your degree then at the U?
Well, I was studying broadcast journalism because I thought I was going into TV. There's no real radio emphasis. But I didn't know that's what I was going to do anyway. I just kind of
I know when I talked to Carrie, there was some broadcasting school or something he was mentioning here in Salt Lake, and I didn't know if that was around.
It was. I didn't go there because I ended up getting a job in it without having that. Yeah. I had the experience, however minute, being at the student radio station, but I learned on the job.
So you interned at KJQ. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you kind of bounced around to a few other radio stations, though, didn't you? Or
I stayed there. I finally started getting paid. I interned for a summer, and then they offered me a job, which was awesome. And I moved up from overnights to late nights, which was great. But then KJQ imploded. I don't know if you talked to Kerry about that at all when you had him on the show, but the station got sold and we all kind of scattered to the winds. Yeah.
He mentioned, and then I think it was he had to stay on for his insurance.
Because he had cancer and he didn't really have the option of jumping ship.
Yeah, but everybody else did.
And so we all went to different places. I ended up at K-Bear for a while.
Did you enjoy that?
Yeah. I'm actually glad. There are people with the station that never worked anywhere else. They worked at KJQ and then it went dark for a while. And when X96 started back up again, they started there. Like Bill did that. But I had the experience of working at some different places, which I'm really glad I had that. I did K-Bear for a while.
And approximately what time was it? Like what were the years of this approximately? Just to kind of get an idea of the time frame.
So like maybe 1990.
Okay.
That would have been. And then went from K-Bear to the same company that owned K-Bear was starting the very first FM all-talk sports station in the country here. And I got a job there and did sports talk for a while, which I'm sure will amuse some people who hear my sports casts on X96 these days.
Are you a pretty big sports person? Or no?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have fun with it on Radio From Hell, but I pay way more attention to it than I let on, and did a couple different sports talk shows there. And then I went to work for Q99. So I bounced around a little bit before I made my way back to X96.
And then eventually went back to X96. And then were you a DJ for a little while before Radio From Hell, or how did that? Once you've gotten into it, you get the bug and you don't want to do anything else. But radio.
Yeah. When KJQ broke up and X96 got back together, they had a lineup all set. And I wasn't a part of that, which bummed me out. So I actually came back to try to get on with X96 in any capacity possible. And I asked the owner, Jim Facer, if I could be a salesperson. He said, "You're not a salesperson." I said, "I know, but I want to work here. I don't care.
You don't care what
I'm doing." Yeah. And he refused to hire me as a salesperson. He said, "When I have a on-air position open up, I'll hire you, but I'm not going to have you be a salesperson." So I went back to being an intern just because I wanted to be in the building and
just be around that environment. Mm-hmm. And so back to Radio From Hell. Explain that team up. I mean, that's such a, I mean, you guys are such a dynamic team.
Thank you.
I mean, really.
So when I was interning at X96 and waiting to get a job, I had a job offer. That's when it went to Q99. I got a job offer to do the morning show there.
Okay.
Which was, that's the prime spot to be on. And I thought, well, I'll go do that for a while until I can move back over. And Carrie and Bill actually rescued me from from Q99. They knew I wasn't happy there and I was under contract, and they got together with Jim Facer, the owner of X96, and said, "We got to get Gina out of her contract. We want her over here." And they did. They had lawyers talk to lawyers and got me out of my contract. And so they went after me. They wanted me on the show, and which was flattering because I'd been a fan of theirs years before.
Yeah. And so Radio From Hell, I talked about it, a little bit when I talked to Carrie, but I mean, obviously you guys played music up until 9/11.
Yep.
That was kind of when Radio From Hell stopped playing music.
Yep.
Do you miss playing music, or do you kind of like more of the format that you do now?
I like the talk format. We play like 2 songs a morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Couple songs.
But I think it suits us better. And, the more radio changes and the more internet radio changes and podcasts change and people are searching for specific content, to give it to them in a block like that is good. You can get the music you want anywhere. You can program your iPod or whatever with all your favorite songs. You don't need us to play those for you. What can't you get anywhere else? Well, us interacting. So to do a whole show of that makes more sense.
Well, and people tend to, they want to hear what's going on in Gina's life. They want to hear what's going on in Bill's life and Carrie's life. And it's like you guys have become part of our morning routine,
It's an ongoing soap opera.
Is it hard to keep your personal life and radio life kind of that separated, or is it pretty, do you just kind of throw it all out there?
We were talking before we went on about my kids.
Yeah.
And their radio names, which I get that all the time.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3 kids.
Festus, Jonesy, and Muhammad, which are not their real names.
Yeah.
I wanted to give them, and my husband, Joe, again, not his real name, but I wanted to give them their anonymity because they didn't ask to be part of a show. But I also feel...
Have they ever asked you to say, Mom, just say our real name?
It's too late.
It's too late.
But, that way I feel better about talking about personal things that happen at home when I'm not using their real names. So if it's something embarrassing or something silly, or if they decide someday they want to be on the radio or do whatever they want to do with their real names. But I didn't want to out them when they were babies and not give them a choice in that. And like my husband, he's a businessman in town. And, I talk about a lot of silly, stupid stuff that goes on in our life that, maybe if you're in business, you wouldn't want somebody you're doing business with to hear those kind of stories about you. So giving him his anonymity is...
It's tough when you're broadcasting yourself. Whether it's through a blog or, even Facebook, so much of us, we share so much of our personal life and we're like, oh, should we really be doing that?
Right.
Or mentioning somebody else or something. And it's like, that's not really fair to them.
Right.
And, I'm sure there's people that know your husband and know you're on the radio.
Sure.
Has that caused any problems or?
No. For the most part, people that know it don't make a big deal out of it. But I wouldn't be doing my job on the show if I were constantly worried about censoring myself because I didn't want to make him look bad or my kids look bad or worry about something with his job or my kids at school or so giving them fake names kind of frees me up to.
Do they ever listen to you on the radio? Do they ever?
Well, my kids aren't allowed to.
Really?
Because that's another thing. I say stuff on there I wouldn't say in front of them. And if I were doing the show thinking my 5-year-old was listening, I'm not going to act the way I need to be on the show. And it's not a show for 5-year-olds.
But one day they'll grow up and maybe download the old episodes on iTunes or something like that.
They'll be older. And Festus, my oldest, he's 15. And... he actually interns with the show during the summer.
Really?
So
yeah, I was curious if you've shown any interest in radio.
Yeah.
You're like, unfortunately. You're like,
Well, it's with him, it's like that or Rockstar. I'm like, well, which one's worse? I don't know. So he's old enough that he's kind of paying attention to it. But even for him, for a long time, I didn't. Like my husband would get them up and ready for school in the morning and there was no radio in the car and none at the house. And I just didn't want them to be aware of any of that.
What advice would you give somebody? Talking about your son's interest in radio, say somebody listening was interested in radio. Would you give any advice or? Sure.
I'm excited when people are because I think there are fewer and fewer people interested in it.
Why do you think that is?
I think they're doing what you're doing. I think they're doing a podcast. Yeah. But radio's different. What you're doing now, we talked about this off the air. You're like, I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to edit it and make it sound nice and I'll put it out when it's ready. One of the great things about radio is you can't do any of that. It's live. It's happening right now. You can talk about something that's happening in the news right this second. You can take a phone call. This happens all the time. We'll be doing a news story about something that's happening locally or sometimes even nationally.
And take a phone call.
Take a phone call. That's my cousin. That's my uncle. That happened to me.
There are podcasts, though, that are set up to be able to take phone calls, though. I mean, do you think podcasts are kind of destroying radio maybe a little bit?
It's a different animal. I think they can all exist together. I think navigating that is what's hard for people in the radio business, like particularly management that don't understand podcasts and how they work and how they can augment what we're doing on the radio. They're, like Carrie's doing with Geek Show or Bill's doing with Let's Go Eat Show.
Have you thought about doing a podcast? I mean, you're the only one who.
Richie's got his.
Richie's got his. Carrie, Bill. I mean,
they tease me about that all the time.
I mean, have you've thought about it? I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
What would you do it about?
Well, and that's the thing. What is it about? What's the focus? I don't want to get on and just start talking. I want it to have a.
You don't think people would find you interesting? Just get on there and say, "This is Gina's day," This is all the bullshit I had to deal with, or something like that.
That takes a certain ego to think that I'm just going to talk for a half an hour and someone will want to listen to it.
You'd be surprised.
I think I probably will do one at some point. But I have to get over that emotional hump to think I could just talk for a half hour and people will download it and listen to it while they're jogging.
Well, you have access to a lot of, bands and people. I mean, who are some people that you've interviewed, say even on Radio From Hell, that you've never thought you would have had the opportunity to bring in there?
Yeah. And that, and a lot of that is, thanks to it being a live local radio show, because you get bands in town or comedians coming to town, or, Salt Lake's even becoming a great place for films to be made. And so there's a lot of, Hollywood people coming in town that you wouldn't have access to any other way.
And then bring them on Radio From Hell.
And, we've had, I don't know if you've had Keith Stubbs on. You've probably had him on before.
I haven't had him on. I'm in contact. But yeah.
But, him being a local comedy club operator has provided us lots of opportunities to
bring on some comedians that are coming through.
Some, big name people that would have been.
Do you have a dream interview? Somebody that you would just fall over backwards or faint or something like that?
I love Eddie Izzard. If we could get him on, I would be.
You are a big Eddie Izzard fan. Yeah.
I love him. I'm unhappy with his Twitter at the moment, but I love him.
Why is that?
Because it's not funny. He tweets about jogging and fundraising and here's where you get tickets to my show. He's using Twitter all wrong.
How do you think the correct way to use Twitter is?
Depends on who you are. If you're a comedian.
Yeah, well, then people expect the funny tweets.
And I follow a lot of comedians and I follow news sources. That's mostly what I use Twitter for. But I don't follow Eddie Izzard to get,
Do you think it's a good tool, like with you guys? I mean, I know like you guys all have Twitter accounts and interacting with your listeners. Do you think Twitter is a great tool for that?
Absolutely. It's another way to reach out. It's a way to keep in touch with people when you're off the air. It's a way for them to get in touch with you too.
Yeah.
We have email and that's still a way people do it, but Twitter's so instantaneous.
If you weren't doing radio, what do you think you would be doing?
I mean, I still probably would fall back to TV. I've done a little bit of it here and there, and I like it, and I would like to do more of it, but there's nothing like radio. You can't speak your mind on TV like you can on radio. You can't have an opinion if you're a news person. You just are reporting the news. You can't, but on the radio, we can be doing a newscast and have an opinion about it and get into a discussion, an argument. You can't do that on the news.
Interesting. Why do you think the three of you, Carrie and Bill and yourself, you guys do make such an excellent team? Is there?
It's chemistry. It's just like a marriage.
Yeah.
Either it works or it doesn't.
I mean, you guys have had your fights. You guys have had your tiffs, but you guys seem to work so well. I mean, it's pretty much been that way since the start, right? Throwing you guys together. I mean,
they've been together 26 years, 27 years. And I've been there 17 years. And I'm the new one at 17 years. But the thing I can equate it most to, it's like a marriage. And for some reason, this marriage works. Can't explain it. It just does. And like when one of us is gone, if someone's on vacation or someone's sick or something, it's okay. But it's better when we're all three there.
Besides radio and TV, what are some of your other hobbies and interests? What are some things that you enjoy doing? I mean, you're obviously a full-time mom as well, so
that kind of takes up all your
keeps
free
you
time.
pretty busy. I mean, what are some other things you enjoy doing?
So it would be family stuff. It's, skiing and hiking and taking advantage of, sometimes I think we in Utah don't appreciate what we have so close to us.
Do you get out and camp a lot during the summer and that kind of stuff?
Try to. It's hard. We don't get a lot of time off work. So whatever we do is usually confined to a Friday and Saturday. And we work, most Saturdays anyway. Yeah. So it's hard to be like out gone camping. I try to take 2 or 3 camping trips a summer, but that's it. But just weekend hikes and going up to Snowbird and taking the tram and hiking down. And that's a great thing we like to do in the summer.
Who are some of your favorite bands? I'm always curious, working in the radio industry. Like what is some music that Gina listens to, like when she's out and about?
Here's the thing. When you work at a station and it's the music you love, and I love alternative music, but it feels like work when you're listening to it.
Carrie said the same thing.
Did he?
Yeah.
Which sounds terrible.
I mean, that's why he said he listens to podcasts, because it's not work to him.
Right. And I don't mean work like, this is work. I mean, I'm in a station where I'm hearing that stuff over and over and over again all day long. And I love it. But when I get outside of work.
You just want silence?
No, I'll listen to talk radio or to podcasts which sounds terrible because I feel like I've been sitting here.
What podcasts do you listen to?
I listen to Mark Maron. I listen to Adam Carolla.
So you do listen to some podcasts?
Yeah. It's hard. The thing I find hard about podcasts, though, rather than music is, a song's over in 3 minutes. And if I have time to listen to another song, I'll listen to another song.
Yeah.
And another song and another song. But if I only have 10 minutes, that's fine. Podcast, it's hard, especially with kids, to find a 45-minute chunk of time uninterrupted that you can listen to podcasts.
Well, and then you don't know what the language is going to be, with your
your kids.
around.
And when you can't concentrate, the kids, And my kids take over the radio when I'm in the car. Festus likes
his music.
He's into, like, he would have loved me working at X96, back in the 90s, because he's into, Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he's like going through his whole 90s phase right now.
So you were back in the day with like Bessie the Milk Beast and all of that, going to the midnight CD releases when those were a big thing.
Yep.
I remember I lived in Provo for a while, and would come out and get the free milk. Which
I wish we still did. Yeah. That was awesome.
Why'd you guys stop doing that?
I don't know. When we got sold, when Jim Facer owned us, that was an arrangement he had made with Karima Weber. And then when we were sold, that arrangement didn't follow us.
It was always great. Go get some free chocolate milk and hang out with the X96 people.
I loved that. I wish we were still doing that.
Do you have any embarrassing radio stories? Any that you'd care to share?
I'll tell you, I had my best and worst celebrity experience in one sentence.
Let's hear it.
We had Norm Macdonald on.
How long ago was this?
2 years ago. So he came to town.
To Wise Guys.
Yeah, to Wise Guys. Yeah. And we had him on the show and had fun with him, and it was great. And then he came back a year later, had him on the show, talking about his show coming up. Oh, this is great. This is fun to have you here. And he looked at me and he said, you were a lot funnier last time I was here, which is my best and worst celebrity experience because he thought I was funny.
I mean, that must have put you on cloud nine a little bit, right?
He thought I was funny and he remembered me. But then but I'm not doing it for him this time for whatever reason. All in one sentence. I went up here to down here.
And you were just like, oh my God.
But I'll take it. I love the whole thing. I'll take it.
Yeah. Are you really as picky of an eater as you come across on the radio?
I'm better than I used to be.
You're better than you used to be.
Because my husband says, try this.
And you'll try things.
And because he's cute, I'll try things.
Yeah.
So I'm better than I used to be. But no, and I blame my mother for it because she's a picky eater. So your kids eat how you eat. And thanks a lot, Mary Claire.
Well, the people I bring on the show, I'm always curious, especially like yourself, who's lived in Utah. I mean, pretty much your whole life. Mm-hmm. What are some of your favorite things about Salt Lake? I mean, as a whole. I mean, do you have any favorite things about the city? Things you like or?
I love living here. I live downtown.
Yeah.
I've lived out in Sandy. Sandy doesn't count as Salt Lake.
Yeah.
I love I love how downtown's growing. I love how we're getting a lot more restaurants, better restaurants, interesting restaurants.
What are some of your favorite local restaurants that
my favorite one lately is R&R Barbecue.
Isn't that down 6 South, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't eaten there. I've heard excellent things about it.
Yeah.
What would you order there if I went there?
The brisket sandwich.
Is it delicious?
So good. Yeah. So good.
Actually, I think Jeff Weiss told me about that place.
Did he?
Yeah.
That's my favorite new place. But there's a lot of them. And it's just fun to be downtown. We're finally in a place, and Salt Lake's grown enough to where you can have a sellout crowd at Rio Tinto Stadium, a Bees game going on, Twilight concert, and they're all full.
Yeah.
Salt Lake's big enough that it can support.
There was a time when it was like you could
There's
have
one thing.
yeah. And people would stress out, oh my gosh, did you hear so-and-so's trying to have a concert, at Salt Air the same night, the E-Center or something, and
I don't know if you've ever had Dan Nealon on. He's someone you should have on.
Not yet.
Yeah, you need to have Dan. But he said the same thing, I never thought I'd see the day where I would look at a concert schedule in Salt Lake and see 3 concerts in one night and not be able to decide which one to go to.
Well, it's coming up. I know it's the same night, the National and Bob Dylan and Wilco. It's like, gosh, I got to decide which one I'm going to go to.
Right. That's a recent event. Usually Salt Lake would get one of those a summer.
Yeah.
Like, Bob Dylan. When Bob Dylan came, I don't know what, 5 or 6 years ago.
It seems to come every year.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of one time when he was up at Deer Valley that long ago, and you're like, oh, well, that's the only concert we need to go to this year. No, now it's at night. Which one am I going to see? So
you've actually been able to, see Salt Lake City progress and change. And I mean, it's kind of turning into its own little city. I love it. Do you make it out to many live shows, live concerts?
Not as many as I'd like, with having the kids, but I always try to go to the ones that X96 is sponsoring. Mm-hmm. And I love going up to Red Butte, go to concerts up there.
Any concerts this summer or that you're...
Trombone Shorty. I love Trombone Shorty. We went to that a couple weeks ago. And Big Ass Show is coming up, of course. So Have
you guys announced the lineup for that?
Not yet. The date is August 24th.
I've seen some great bands at the Big Ass Show.
Yeah.
One of my favorite, I remember Sunny Day Real Estate down at the KSL Triad Center. That was one of my favorite ones.
It's nice being a part of a station that, that started as a big thank you party for the listeners. Just, hey, we think you're great. We have gathered together as many bands as we can to have a party and to keep it going. I think this is
how many years has that been?
I want to say 16, 17 years.
And you've been part of every one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which that sounds like a lot when you say it like that, but and there are people that
you don't get sick of it.
Oh no. Big Ass Show is one of the best things we do all year because like I said, it's a big party. It's all day long. You see the same people coming every year. And there are people that came as kids, got married, had kids of their own, and are now there with their kids, which is great.
Share something about yourself that maybe the listeners might not expect. Is there anything, any hidden secrets and guilty pleasures? Or you probably have shared everything about yourself on.
That's the thing. I am pretty much an open book.
Yeah.
And
or what's a band that people wouldn't expect you to listen to? Back to the music you listen to.
A band they wouldn't expect me to listen to.
Like a Britney Spears or Justin Bieber or something.
No. I do kind of like Justin Timberlake.
Hey, that's fair. I don't think I wouldn't expect that.
No.
I wouldn't expect that from you.
I do kind of. And I don't think he's cute at all. That's not what it is. But I think he's talented and that's going to come back to bite me. Thanks.
You're like, thanks a lot. Anything else you want to add? I mean, I appreciate sitting down with you. I mean, hopefully, people listening found out a little bit more about you.
I hope so. I'm grateful
as a person.
I'm grateful for the longtime listeners that we have and the new ones that are coming on all the time. I'm glad you're doing a podcast like this because anything that promotes the city is great. I love promoting local businesses. I try to use them as much as I can exclusively and local products. And
so you're pretty big local, shop local.
Try to,
person.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's getting easier to do. That was something people would say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Oh, shop local. You're like, okay, great. There are 3 things I can buy that are made locally here. That's changing. So
do you ever see yourself leaving Salt Lake?
No. I love it here.
Even if you got like a really cool opportunity somewhere else.
We've had offers.
Uh-huh.
The whole show's had offers.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't take it.
Well, and I don't know if this show would work somewhere else. It's very local centric. We talk about things happening around town. Now we have listeners all over the world, and some of them have found us not knowing anything about Salt Lake, but a lot of them are people that have moved away, and the show's a way for them to keep in touch with Salt Lake.
Does it get pretty tough when you go out and about, people bothering you, hassling you?
No, and I love meeting people, and people are always like,
They wait to hear your voice.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll get email from people saying, I saw you somewhere and I didn't want to say hello. And please always say hello. That's a compliment. That's not an intrusion.
Just come and say hello.
Sure.
And you're Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., right, is when they can catch you, 96.3.
Yep.
On the radio.
Then we podcast the shows too if you miss them or want to catch up.
Well, but then it's like Carrie said, that doesn't go towards the stats. He's like, just turn your radio dial on. You can leave the room.
Yep. Just as long as you have that on.
Isn't that ridiculous that they don't count those stats? Or
Do you know what? They're starting to.
Really?
But it's similar to like DVRing your favorite show. If you listen to it within 24 hours of when it originally broadcast, they'll count it.
Interesting.
But, most people listen to podcasts like they watch TV shows. I just barely caught up on Game of Thrones.
Exactly. It's like you don't be like, I got to make it home by 7 o'clock to watch my TV show.
You don't have to do that. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah. But I've heard, what was a show, Community or something like that? That was a big thing with their ratings from what I heard, with there's been
there's been enough noise about it that it's starting to change. So please, if you can't listen to us live, podcast it and listen to it as soon as you can, because we do get credit for that.
Or stream it online.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
So just x96.com for that.
Any final words? Any words of wisdom from Gina? Mottos or piece of advices?
Don't come to me for wisdom.
Don't come to you for wisdom?
How about quit bitching about Salt Lake?
I love it.
I hate people like, there's
nothing to do here.
Yeah, you are dumb.
Yeah, there's plenty to do here.
Don't do that. I love this city, and if you don't love it, get out.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thanks a lot, Gina. And, maybe down the road, like I always say, bring you back on, catch up with you, and see what you've been up to.
Thank you.
Many thanks goes out to Gina Barberi for coming on the podcast and sharing her story with the rest of you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation that I had with her. I was so grateful that she came in and talked with me and was part of the podcast. Really meant a lot to me. Again, the website, iamsaltlake.com, is the website. You can listen to all the previous episodes right there. You can get the show notes. That way you can get all the links to connect with everybody that I've talked to. You can find me on Twitter at iamsaltlake, facebook.com/iamsaltlake. That way you can make sure to follow me, keep up to date. I try to keep you guys up to date of what's going on in Salt Lake City in between episodes. Again, those episodes come out Monday and Thursday. I got a voicemail line that is always open. Cannot urge you enough to call it up. 385-202-5926. Give me a call. Tell me what you like about the podcast. Tell me what you like about Salt Lake City. If you just want to call and ramble, I'd love to hear from my listeners. iamsaltlake@gmail.com is the email. Drop me a line. Tell me what you think. If you want to be a guest on the show, I'd love to bring you on. Got a lot of really great interviews coming up and a lot of really great episodes coming up. So make sure you subscribe in iTunes. And until then, my name is Chris Hollifield. Thank you for listening to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. You guys have a great day.